This audiobook has the power to tear down the comfortable walls of your reality and reveal the raw, untamed cosmos within your own soul. It can save you from a breaking point you might not even see coming. It can awaken a force so profound, so extreme, that your life will never, ever be the same. Listen, if you dare. Welcome back, friends. Last time we explored Kundalini Awakening and its incredible powers, and the conversation in the comments blew me away. Today, we're diving even deeper with Kundalini versus spiritual awakening, two forces so extreme they can either break you or completely transform you. Before we begin, drop a comment to share where you're listening from and what you're experiencing right now. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe to join this community where we explore rare, powerful knowledge together. Let's begin. There is a moment, quiet and unassuming, that arrives in the life of a seeker. It is a moment where the universe itself seems to pause, holding its breath, waiting for a choice to be made. It is the moment just before a person steps onto one of two paths, two destinies that appear similar on the surface but could not be more different in their nature and their outcome. This is not a choice one makes with the mind. It is a summons felt in the very marrow of the bones, a deep, resonant calling from the core of one's being. And the path one finds themselves on, whether by chance, by grace, or by unconscious will, determines everything. You, listening to this now, are likely standing at that very crossroads. You would not be here otherwise. The universe does not call those who are not ready to be tested, to be forged, to be remade. There is a restlessness in you, a sense that there is more to this existence than what meets the eye. You have felt flickers of it, a sudden, overwhelming wave of connection in nature, a profound sense of peace in meditation, or perhaps a terrifying and inexplicable energy that has shaken you to your core. You are searching for a map, for a guide who can name the unnameable and chart the uncharted territory of your own awakening consciousness. This book is that map. But let us be perfectly, unequivocally clear from the outset. The journey we are about to embark upon is not a gentle stroll. It is a trek into the highest peaks and the deepest trenches of your own psyche. It is an encounter with the most extreme powers a human being can ever face. And the central, critical distinction this book will make, the one that could very well save your sanity and your life, is the difference between a Kundalini awakening and a spiritual awakening. A person might believe they are the same. The culture often conflates them, but to do so is like mistaking a volcanic eruption for the gentle, life-giving rise of the sun. Both are powerful, both are transformative, but one is a chaotic, destructive, and rebuildable force, while the other is a gradual, illuminating, and integrative one. One can shatter a person, leaving them in a state of spiritual emergency, while the other, though challenging, builds them up from the inside out. This is the great divide. This is the choice you are making, whether you know it or not. Your soul is calling for an evolution, and how you answer that call, which force you invite to do the work, will define the rest of your incarnation. So, let us begin by understanding the two immense powers that stand before you. Chapter 1. The Sleeping Serpent and the Whispering Soul. 2. Calls to Awaken. Imagine, if you will, a force coiled at the very base of your spine. It is ancient, primal, and unimaginably powerful. It sleeps within every human being. A latent reservoir of pure, creative, and destructive potential. This is the Kundalini, often symbolized as a serpent, and its awakening is like the firing of the engines of creation within your own nervous system. Now, imagine a different kind of force. It is not a power coiled within your body, but a presence that dawns within your awareness. It is a light that begins to grow, a knowing that starts to whisper, a sense of unity that slowly dissolves the illusion of your separation. This is the call of spiritual awakening. A person must understand this fundamental difference from the very beginning. The call of the serpent is a call of raw, untamed power. It is a shamanic journey, an alchemical process that works primarily through the body and the energetic system. It is forceful, dramatic, and often involuntary. It can feel like a lightning bolt striking the very core of your being. The call of the soul, however, is a call of lucid, expanding consciousness. It is a philosophical and mystical journey that works primarily through the heart and the mind. It is gentle, gradual, and while it requires surrender, it is a more cooperative process with the universe. You, the seeker, might feel the first stirrings and not know what you are feeling. Is this intense heat in your spine a gift or a curse? Is this sudden, overwhelming love for all creation a sign of enlightenment or a symptom of madness? The answer lies in recognizing the source of the call. The Kundalini seeks to unleash power through you. The spiritual awakening seeks to reveal truth to you. One is an ascent of energy. The other is an expansion of understanding. Both will change you irrevocably. But the nature of the journey, the challenges you will face, and the ultimate destination are profoundly different. Listen closely to the quality of the call you are hearing. Your entire future depends on it. The sleeping serpent does not care for your comfort. It cares only for your evolution, and it will burn through any obstacle, including your sanity, to achieve its goal. The whispering soul, in contrast, speaks the language of love and unity, inviting you to release your obstacles and come home to a truth that has always been there. To mistake the roar of the awakening serpent for the gentle whisper of your soul is the most costly error a seeker can make, an error that can lead you into a labyrinth of suffering instead of onto the open path of peace. Chapter 2. The Volcanic Uncoiling. A Kundalini Awakening Story. There is a man, let us call him Alex, who thought he was prepared. He had meditated for years, read all the spiritual texts, and felt he was on a stable path. Then, one night, without warning, it began. It started as a heat at the base of his spine, a warmth that quickly grew into a burning, urgent fire. Then came the sensations, vibrations that shook his body as if an earthquake were originating from within. His mind was flooded with a torrent of images, memories, and sounds. He could not sleep. He felt an unbearable pressure in his head, as if his skull were cracking open. He was terrified, convinced he was having a psychotic break. This, my friend, is the face of a premature or chaotic Kundalini awakening. This is not a gentle unfolding. It is a volcanic eruption in the human nervous system. The being experiencing this does not feel grace. They feel possessed by a force they cannot control. The classic symptoms are a testament to its intensity. Spontaneous bodily movements, krias, as the energy clears blockages, intense heat or cold sweats, visions and auditory phenomena, periods of extreme emotional volatility, swinging from bliss to terror in a heartbeat, and a crushing sense of pressure in the head and spine. The person feels like a puppet whose strings have been taken over by a mad god. Now, I want you to pause for a moment. Feel into that story. Feel the fear, the confusion, the sheer terror of losing control of your own mind and body. This is the reality for many who stumble into this process unprepared. It is the extreme power that could end you if it is not met with the proper respect, knowledge, and guidance. But remember this, even in this chaos, there is a purpose. The serpent is not evil. It is merely the most potent force of nature you will ever encounter. And like any force of nature, one must learn to build the proper channels for it, or be destroyed by its raw, unbridled flow. Alex's story did not end in the psychiatric ward, though he certainly visited one. His salvation began the moment he found a teacher who could name his experience. The word Kundalini was a lifeline. It meant he was not insane. He was in a profound, if perilous, spiritual process. The journey shifted from one of panic to one of focused navigation. He learned to ground himself, to eat root vegetables, to walk barefoot on the earth, to channel the searing energy into long, mindful walks instead of letting it ricochet inside his skull. The volcano was still active, but he was learning to live on its slopes without being consumed by its lava. Chapter 3. The Gentle Dawn, a Spiritual Awakening Story. Now, let us consider another person. Let us call her Sarah. Sarah's journey did not begin with a lightning strike. It began with a quiet, persistent feeling of dissatisfaction, a sense that the life she was living was a performance, a costume that no longer fit. She started to question everything: her career, her relationships, her beliefs. Then, one day, while walking in the park, she looked at a tree and something shifted. She did not just see the tree, she felt connected to it. She felt its life, its stillness, its essence. In that moment, the separate, isolated Sarah dissolved, and what remained was a vast, peaceful awareness, simply witnessing, simply being. This is the face of a genuine spiritual awakening. This is the gentle dawn. It is not less powerful than the Kundalini, but its power is of a different order. It is the power of truth, not of energy. The process is one of shedding, of unlearning, of realizing what you are not, until only the timeless essence of what you are remains. The symptoms of this awakening are subtler, but no less profound. A deep, abiding sense of peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. A feeling of interconnectedness with all people and all things. A dissolution of old fears and anxieties. A natural compassion that flows without effort. And a quiet, unshakable knowing that you are, and always have been, safe and whole. You see, the being undergoing a spiritual awakening is not being taken over by a force. They are coming home to themselves. They are remembering their true nature. The challenges here are different. They involve the ego's resistance to its own demise, the pain of seeing one's own past illusions, and the difficulty of integrating this boundless awareness into a human, worldly life. But it is a cooperative process. The universe leans in, supports, and guides. It is the extreme power that awakens you, not by force, but by revelation. It is the path of the heart opening to its own infinite capacity for love. For Sarah, the days and weeks that followed were not always easy. The profound peace would come and go. The old personality, with its worries and judgments, would reassert itself. But something had irrevocably changed. There was now a background of stillness against which the drama of her life played out. She found herself naturally letting go of toxic relationships, not with anger, but with a quiet sense of completion. She was drawn to silence and found that in that silence, the love she had been seeking externally was overflowing from within. Her awakening was not a catastrophic event, but a profound remembering, a return to a home she had forgotten existed. Chapter 4. The Crossroads of Crisis and Grace, Telling the Difference. So, you feel a shift happening within you. The ground is moving beneath your feet. How can you possibly know which path you are on? Is this a crisis or a grace? The answer is vital, for the required response for each is diametrically opposed. A person in the throes of a chaotic Kundalini awakening is in a spiritual emergency. They need to ground, to stabilize, to calm the nervous system. They need to eat heavy, earthy foods, spend time in nature, and perhaps seek therapeutic help to integrate the psychic upheaval. To advise such a person to just go with the flow or to meditate more intensely could be catastrophic, like pouring gasoline on a fire. Conversely, a person experiencing a pure spiritual awakening is in a state of grace, even if it is accompanied by the painful dissolution of the ego. Their work is one of surrender, of allowing, of saying yes to the expanding awareness. They need to lean into the silence, to practice self-inquiry, to explore the nature of consciousness itself. To tell this person to suppress their experience, to get grounded in a mundane reality they are transcending, would be to clip the wings of a bird just as it learns to fly. You must become your own diagnostician. Look at the core of your experience. Is it primarily happening in your body and energy system? Is it intense, sensory, and often overwhelming? This points to Kundalini. Or is it primarily happening in your consciousness and perception? Is it a shift in how you see and know the world, accompanied by peace and love? This points to spiritual awakening. The crossroads is the point of discernment. Your ability to honestly assess your experience will be the compass that guides you safely through the storm or into the clear, open skies of your true nature. Ask yourself these questions in a quiet moment. Where is the epicenter of this change? In your cells? Or in your awareness? Is the process demanding you change? Or inviting you to remember? The answer to these questions is the most important piece of data you will ever collect on your journey. It is the difference between fighting a force and surrendering to a truth, between managing a crisis and embracing a grace. Chapter 5. When the paths collide. The dangers of mistaking one for the other. The greatest danger in all of this is not in choosing one path over the other. The greatest danger lies in the confusion of the two. Imagine a person, let us call him David, whose heart is opening. He is feeling more love, more connection. He mistakes this gentle spiritual awakening for the call of the Kundalini. Eager to accelerate his progress, he begins to practice forceful breathing techniques, intense yogic practices, and attempts to raise his Kundalini. He is, in essence, trying to trigger a volcanic eruption inside a temple that is being gently illuminated by the dawn. The result is predictable: chaos. He is forcing an energetic process onto a consciousness-based journey. This is like trying to power a light bulb with a nuclear reactor. The system cannot handle it. The gentle peace of his spiritual awakening is shattered by the violent, energetic onslaught of a Kundalini he was not prepared for. Now, his beautiful, expansive state is mixed with anxiety, insomnia, and psychic instability. His awakening has become a nightmare because he did not understand the tools he was using. This, dear listener, is a tragically common story. In our haste for profound experiences, we can inadvertently invite a force into our house that we have no idea how to manage. We mistake the gentle need for surrender with a call for forceful action. This is why this distinction is not just academic. It is a matter of spiritual safety. And, quo, the path of the heart requires one kind of courage, the courage to let go. The path of the serpent requires another, the courage to hold on and be purified by a fire. To confuse the two is to risk the very breakdown this book seeks to help you avoid. David's journey back to balance was long. He had to abandon all his forceful practices and learn the true meaning of surrender. He had to let the chaotic energy subside, a process that took months of dedicated grounding and rest. He learned, through painful experience, that the spiritual path is not about acquiring power, but about uncovering the peace that was always there. His mistake became his greatest teacher, but it was a teacher that nearly cost him his sanity. Chapter 6. The Alchemy of Integration, Taming the Serpent and Embodying the Light. Whether you find yourself on the path of the serpent or the path of the soul, the ultimate goal is not the peak experience itself. The ultimate goal is integration. It is the alchemical process of bringing the gold of your awakening down into the lead of your everyday human life. For the one who has awakened the Kundalini, Integration is the work of taming the serpent. It is about building a container strong enough to hold the voltage. This involves profound grounding practices, working with the earth, physical labor, mindful movement like Tai Chi, and a strict sattvic diet. It is about learning to be the conscious conductor of the power, not its terrified victim. For the one who has awakened spiritually, integration is the work of embodying the light. It is about allowing the infinite awareness you have touched to express itself through your finite human personality. How does that boundless love pay the bills? How does that profound peace handle a traffic jam? This is the work of bringing heaven down to earth. It involves conscious living, mindful speech, compassionate action, and the slow, patient rewiring of your human habits to reflect your divine nature. You see, an unintegrated awakening is merely a fascinating story. An integrated awakening is a transformed life. It does not matter how high you can fly in meditation. What matters is how you treat the cashier at the grocery store. It does not matter how much energy is rushing up your spine. What matters is whether you can channel that energy into creative, loving, and purposeful action in the world. This is the great work. This is where the extreme power ceases to be a threat and becomes your greatest gift. Integration is the silent, unglamorous work that happens after the fireworks have faded. It is the daily commitment to live from the truth you have been shown. For the Kundalini initiate, this might mean using the heightened energy to paint a masterpiece or build a business, rather than letting it cause internal friction. For the spiritual initiate, it means responding to an insult with understanding, rather than reacting with old anger. This is the point where the mystical becomes practical, where the miracle becomes your life. Chapter 7. The Dark Night of the Soul and the Kundalini Crisis, Navigating the Abyss. Every true seeker will, at some point, find themselves in the abyss. This is a non-negotiable stage of the journey. But the nature of the abyss is different depending on your path. In a spiritual awakening, this is known as the dark night of the soul. It is a period where the initial bliss and connection fade, and what remains feels like a barren desert. The ego is in its death throes, and it feels like God has abandoned you. It is a crisis of meaning, a profound emptiness. But this darkness is not an enemy. It is the final, deep cleanse, where the last vestiges of the separate self are dissolved. The key here is to endure, to have faith that the dawn will return, and to understand that you are being hollowed out to become a clearer vessel for the light. For the person on the Kundalini path, the abyss is a Kundalini crisis. This is not a dark night of meaning, but a systemic overload. The body and mind are overwhelmed by the energy. It can manifest as chronic pain, severe insomnia, intense anxiety, or states that resemble mental illness. This is a medical and energetic emergency as much as a spiritual one. The key here is not just to endure, but to actively seek help from understanding medical professionals, from experienced spiritual guides, from bodyworkers. The focus must be on stabilization and grounding, on slowing the process down to a manageable pace. You must know which abyss you are in. In the dark night of the soul, the instruction is to surrender deeper into the emptiness. In a Kundalini crisis, the instruction is to stabilize and strengthen your vessel. To apply the wrong medicine is to prolong the suffering. But know this, both abysses, as harrowing as they are portals. They are the final initiation before a new level of stability and power is attained. You are not being broken. You are being remade. The being in the dark night is like a caterpillar dissolved in the chrysalis. It feels like an end, but it is the necessary precondition for the butterfly. The being in the Kundalini crisis is like a piece of iron in the forge, being heated and hammered into a sword. It is painful, but it is the process that gives it strength and a sharp, purposeful edge. Chapter 8. The Shakti and the Shiva, the sacred marriage within. At the highest level of understanding, these two paths are not enemies. They are divine lovers seeking union. In the Tantric traditions, Kundalini is known as Shakti, the feminine, active, creative power of the universe. Consciousness itself is known as Shiva, the masculine, passive, aware presence. The journey of the Kundalini up the spine is the journey of Shakti, longing to reunite with her beloved Shiva, who resides in the crown of the head. Their sacred union is the culmination of the path, the state of enlightened embodiment. The path of spiritual awakening is the path of realizing yourself as Shiva, as the timeless, silent, witnessing consciousness. The path of Kundalini Awakening is the path of awakening Shakti, the dynamic, creative, intelligent energy that animates all of life. A person who only cultivates Shiva consciousness may become serene but disengaged from the world, a silent witness without expression. A person who only cultivates Shakti energy may become a bundle of dynamic, creative power, but without the centered awareness to direct it wisely, leading to burnout or chaos. The ultimate goal, the pinnacle of human evolution, is the sacred marriage. It is when the fully realized consciousness, Shiva, marries the fully awakened power, Shakti. This is the being who can act in the world with immense power, yet remain rooted in perfect peace. This is the state of a true master. Your journey, whether it started with a whisper or a shock, is ultimately guiding you toward this inner union. You are learning to be both the boundless sky and the lightning that illuminates it. This union is not a metaphor. It is a lived reality. It is the state where every thought is infused with power, every action is imbued with peace, and every moment is a spontaneous, perfect expression of the divine playing in human form. This is the promise that awaits at the end of both paths, the convergence where all extremes are reconciled in a harmonious, vibrant, and awakened whole. Chapter 9. Your Divine Blueprint, Navigating Your Unique Awakening. By now, you understand the map. You know the two great rivers of transformation. But here is the most important truth you will ever hear. Your awakening is yours alone. It is your soul's unique divine blueprint unfolding. You cannot force it to fit into a textbook description. Perhaps your journey is 70% spiritual awakening and 30% Kundalini activation. Perhaps the energies rise gently for you, in harmony with your expanding heart. There is no one right way. The purpose of this book is not to give you a rigid formula, but to give you the lenses of discernment. It is to hand you the keys of understanding so you can unlock the meaning of your own experience. You must become the silent, curious, and compassionate witness to your own process. You must learn to listen to the deep wisdom of your own body and your own soul. Does this practice bring me peace and clarity? Or does it bring me agitation and overwhelm? Your inner guidance system is the final authority. Trust yourself. You were chosen for this journey because you have the capacity to complete it. The very fact that you are listening, that you are seeking, is proof that the intelligence of the universe is already working within you. Do not compare your path to anyone else's. Your combination of challenges and graces is perfectly designed for the soul you are, for the being you are destined to become. Embrace your unique, messy, magnificent, and utterly personal spiritual journey. This path is a solitary one, walked only by you, for you. Yet, in its unique contours, it reflects the universal journey of all souls returning to Source. Your specific lessons, your particular triggers, your unique moments of bliss, they are all part of a curriculum designed exclusively for your evolution. Honor that. Do not try to imitate the awakening of a saint or a guru. Your awakening will look like you, only more so. It will be the full, unfettered expression of your authentic self, finally liberated from the constraints of fear and separation finally embodying the unique flavor of the divine that you were always meant to express in this world. Chapter 10. The Awakened Life. Embodying the Extreme Power. So, what awaits on the other side? What is it like to have navigated these extreme powers and emerged not just intact, but radiantly alive? The awakened life is not a life spent on a mountaintop in perpetual meditation. It is a life lived fully, passionately, and compassionately in the world. It is a life where the extreme power has become your native breath. For the being who has integrated the Kundalini, the body becomes a conduit of cosmic energy. Creativity flows effortlessly. Healing presence emanates from them. They can undertake massive action in the world without burning out, for they are plugged into the source of all power. For the being who has stabilized in spiritual awakening, life becomes a playful, luminous dance. They see the divine in everything, in the face of a stranger, in the breaking of a wave, in the joy and the sorrow. They live from a place of unshakable peace and unconditional love. This, dear listener, is your birthright. This is the destination of the path you are on. It is a life where every moment is sacred, every encounter is holy, and every challenge is seen as another facet of the divine, perfecting itself through you. The extreme power did not end you. It ended the illusion of the small, separate you, to reveal the magnificent, infinite being you have always been. The journey was never about becoming something you are not. It was always about remembering, embodying, and finally, unashamedly, living as who you truly are. The world is waiting for the gift that only your awakened life can bring. Imagine a life where stress is not your master, where fear is a distant memory, and where love is the very air you breathe. This is not a fantasy. It is the direct result of having passed through the fire of transformation and having allowed it to burn away everything that was not real. You become a beacon, not by trying to shine, but simply by being what you are, a fully realized human, a bridge between heaven and earth, a living testament to the fact that the greatest power in the universe is not out there, but in here, waiting patiently for your recognition.